Alright, what is good? What's happening? How's everyone doing today? My name is Chuck and welcome back to a brand new video. Today here in Modern Warfare, what I have for you guys is we're going to be going over the best settings to use in Call of Duty Warzone. Warzone, as you guys know, is an incredibly fun game mode and there's a variety of different modes to be able to jump into, but one thing that's going to dictate how well you do can largely be just your settings that you happen to have in your main menu. So my job and my goal today is to be able to give you guys the best settings to be able to use in all of Call of Duty Warzone so that way you can have your best games possible. That being said, if you guys think you enjoyed today's video, make sure you guys slap a like on it. Also, hit that subscribe button with those notifications turned on. We're closing in on 700,000 subscribers. And also, comment down below what you guys are most looking forward to be able to get within the Season 3 Battle Pass. With that being said, now let's jump into these awesome settings. So, jumping into this, we're going to go right here to the controller settings because this is basically, I'm on controller, I'm not on PC. So, for any of you guys that are on PC, I'm sorry, I can't really help you out too much, but for me right now, you guys will notice that my BR button layout is going to be tactical flipped, and it stays tactical flipped for both multiplayer and Warzone. But my reason behind this is that whenever I get to actually shoot somebody, I can use my R1 and my L1 triggers, or my top two triggers, and not have to press in my bottom triggers, and that's actually incredibly useful, especially for those of you guys out there that maybe you're playing with a regular controller and don't have any sort of trigger stops or something that keeps the button from going all the way in. Even though it is indeed faster using a scuffed controller, having your buttons on tactical flip so you only have to press in the very top one instead of the bottom ones and squeeze the trigger all the way in can definitely make or break those, few little milliseconds where you potentially could be, shooting your gun versus maybe not shooting your gun. So I would recommend running tactical flipped as your sort of first thing here on your button layout. My horizontal stick sensitivity and my vertical stick sensitivity is going to be a 6. I found that 6 works really well for me. You guys don't need a crazy high sensitivity. You also don't need one that's crazy low. This is more or less your personal preference, but I found that 6 is like the happy medium for me. I play anywhere on between a 6 to an 8 on basically most Call of Duty titles, basically depending on how they, adjust their sensitivities. It can be a little bit different, but for me right now, I would say that a 6 sensitivity is absolutely amazing. And if you guys are struggling to hit your shots at a higher sensitivity, make sure to move that thing a little bit down because you don't have to have a very high one, especially when you're trying to, be pretty accurate. I would say having a lower sensitivity is going to do you a little bit more justice. So try running like a 6.6 sensitivity. Something that I also like to do is you guys can see my ADS sensitivity multiplier, which is a 0.8. I don't have this at a 1.0 because when I'm actually trying to hit some of those shots, sometimes it can be a little bit daunting, especially when this is at a 1.0. If you want to move it down just ever so slightly to like a 0.8 or something like that, this does help you kind of basically be a little bit more accurate at either really far ranges where you have a 3.25 times magnification or more, or if you're at very close range when you have less than a 3.25 times magnification. So basically for iron sights or like a red dot or something like that, this helps me hit more shots by slowing down the amount of input I can possibly give to be able to actually, move the stick around and basically, go off target. So for me, having a 0.8 and actually bumping this down from a 1.0 to that actually is very beneficial. So make sure you guys actually try this out. If you haven't messed with this and you find you're maybe not hitting all the shots you want to, definitely go ahead and actually try this setting out. My aim response curve type is actually also at a dynamic that you can see there's standard, linear, and dynamic. I actually run at the dynamic reverse S-curve mapping for fine aim control. This actually is my preference right here. I love to be able to do this. You have linear basically where everything is, all the same. This actually kind of helps slow down some of your movement just a little bit. It's like an S shape or just a more of a dynamic type of curve to it. It's basically not just a flat line so that you have the same sort of input from start to finish. It really helps me slow down and be able to hit some of those shots. So if you guys are struggling to hit some of your shots and you want to be able to have a bit of better help with your aim assist, definitely try to throw on the dynamic aim assist or the response curve. This actually does help out just a little bit for me. My aim assist actually stays on standard, but you can throw this on precision if you really want to, or focusing. Focusing is basically best for players like it says right here that are best to analog, or that are new to analog aiming. So if you basically are a new first-person shooter player, or if Warzone is your first first-person shooter, running the aim assist on focusing instead of standard, like going down here to focusing instead of standard, this will be your best friend. I run standard because I'm a veteran Call of Duty player. I've been playing for years and years, probably like 10 plus years right now. So you know, I definitely have a good idea of how the aim assist and everything feels. I've been playing first-person shooters for, you know, a long time, but if you guys are more new to them, running the focusing one is going to be your best friend, as opposed to precision, which is going to be the opposite end of the spectrum, and standard's kind of like your happy medium. Whatever you do though, never disable your aim assist. Never disable it, because that's a very bad idea. Just keep aim assist on. It makes a massive difference. So here's another setting that a lot of you guys probably have not altered all that much, the use/reload behavior. As you guys can see, mine is on tap to reload, because basically that's what I play with on multiplayer. But when I go over to Warzone, if I'm going to go over into Warzone, because I was playing multiplayer last night, so I swapped it back, I always go to contextual tap, because instead of actually having to run over a gun and basically hold down square for me to be able to pick up the gun, I actually just tap the button and it actually automatically just picks up that gun for me, and it saves me all that time of having to, you know, hold the gun and take my thumb off the stick and hold the button a little bit more. So definitely make sure you switch over to contextual tap, but it actually can sometimes, you know, screw you just a little bit, especially I've noticed in a helicopter. If you try to reload, sometimes you can just, you know, end up jumping out of the helicopter when you're not really trying to do that. So you kind of have to be a little bit of aware of certain things. You may jump out the helicopter an extra time, or jump off, you know, the bike or the ATV a little bit. But for me, this option to be able to pick up stuff super fast far outweighs any of those other negative side effects. So if I was you guys, I would go into the contextual tap, and then make sure you swap that back over to tap to reload for multiplayer, because you're going to run into a whole host of issues running contextual tap in multiplayer, and, you know, kind of more or less vice versa. So swap over tap to reload to contextual tap, and when you go back to multiplayer, if you play multiplayer, go back to tap to reload. Those are your two best options to be able to have. You can keep this on tap to reload, but I would say that, you know, if you want to be able to be fast at looting and everything, which is a huge thing, especially when you're in a crunch time situation, contextual tap is your best friend. I don't have auto move on forward enabled or automatic sprint. That's kind of up to you guys. I like to be able to control everything myself, so that's just kind of up to you. You can also have your parachute auto deploy on enabled or disabled, but if you're a new player, I would keep it on enabled, and if you're a veteran player, I would put that on disabled. That way you can get as close to the ground as possible. I mean, I know that you can get pretty close to the ground already, but maybe just being able to get that much closer can be the difference between you being the first down there to get that loot, get that gun, and be able to, you know, take somebody out, versus the other guy who maybe has the setting disabled and he's down there a little bit faster than you. So I would say if you're a good player and you understand the parachute mechanics in Warzone, definitely run your parachute auto deploy as disabled. That would be, you know, my sort of recommendation for this. So here's something you guys definitely need to be understanding, is that underneath the general tab, you have your film grain. Turn this all the way off. You guys can see on the right side, there's a lot of grain, and then on the left side of the image, there is basically no grain. So make sure your film grain is turned all the way off. We don't need to do any of that. It does not give you any sort of benefit to have film grain on. Please just turn this completely off. Also, another thing a lot of people have still turned on, which is they have their world motion blur and their weapon motion blur on. No. Keep the world motion blur and your weapon motion blur both disabled. You do not want motion blur on. It does not do you any sort of good to have motion blur on. You're not gonna like lag more frames or something when you have it off. It just makes your game, you know, basically a lot more blurry. And if you're trying to pick out people from, you know, way out in the distance, you running around shaking your gun, swapping your gun, and having everything be blurry doesn't exactly help you out all that much. So make sure you have both of these things disabled. That would be, you know, my, you know, sort of, you know, calling, because if you actually turn it off, you're gonna notice a world of difference in how the game looks, and it's gonna feel pretty smooth. It really will. Also, something is that if you guys are not running the minimap shape, you know, sort of change, a lot of people run it on the round. As you guys can see, if you swap it over to square, your minimap actually does increase in total size. So make sure you are changing your minimap over to square. As you guys can see, even just by the diagram, the square gives you a lot more size, and being that people actually show up on the minimap as red dots in Warzone as opposed to multiplayer when they fire their gun without a silencer, it does do you a lot of benefit to have a square minimap as opposed to, let's say, you know, just a circular minimap. And the same goes for multiplayer. I like having a square minimap over a circular one. Just run the square one. It's just better. My minimap Minimap Rotation is actually also enabled. You can run that enabled or disabled. It's just kind of up to you and whatever your personal preference is. I like having it enabled. I mean, I also know exactly where I'm going basically at most points in time anyways, so it's not that big of a deal if, you know, it's not enabled or it is. So for me, it doesn't really matter too much, but for those of you guys that maybe want it or just want everything to be oriented towards you, keep it enabled, and if you don't want it, then just click it disabled. But I would say more or less, I always have it mine on enabled, and I like it like that. Obviously, Warzone looks pretty cool when you have, you know, people's limbs and stuff flying off, especially when they get hit by the helicopter, so make sure your dismemberment and gore effects are enabled, because I mean, this doesn't really do anything to, you know, improve your gameplay, but it just looks cool when people get, you know, caught up by the helicopter or something, or their, you know, limb goes flying. I think it looks pretty neat, so just kind of, you know, keep it on. You guys really don't have to mess with too much here in your audio. I mean, I just kind of run it on the home theater mix. There's a bunch of different mixes, you know, some of them really help out other people, whether you're playing on, you know, through your TV, maybe you're playing through like a headset or something like that. I mean, it really doesn't matter. There's not too much of a difference here. It's just kind of more or less what sounds the best to you. I mean, you're still gonna hear footsteps regardless, so whatever you want to do with this, it doesn't really matter too much. But what we really need to take a look at is this tab right here, which is going to be crossplay. So as you guys can see, because I'm on PlayStation 4, this is going to be a little bit different if you're on Xbox. I think it's going to be a little bit different, is what I've been hearing from my subscribers, and that is that if you cannot disable crossplay and actually get into a game on Xbox, but I know on PlayStation I can disable crossplay and I can actually get into a full game of Warzone only with PlayStation players. And here's the real kicker to this, because on Warzone it is cross-platform, you get Xbox and PC guys, and we have this huge issue right now with PC players actually going through and hacking and actually getting into the Warzone servers. Sometimes you die by a PC player, or they just swipe right and completely, you know, delete you out of the game, and it looks really fishy, and you're like, that's not fair, because I have no chance to be able to do that. If you're on PlayStation, go ahead and just disable it. And the thing you're going to notice is that when you try to click on the game, it'll tell you to like enable it and just hit no. You'll get another pop-up, just hit no, and you'll then get into your lobby full of only basically PlayStation players. So I don't know how this works exactly on Xbox, if you can do this, but to my knowledge, I don't think you necessarily can. I would try it out though, because the more often you can avoid PC players, basically the better, especially if we're on console. I mean, that's just kind of more or less how it is. Otherwise, this is basically all the settings I got for you guys. This is everything I have to be able to help you improve your gameplay. If you guys enjoyed today's video, make sure you guys slap a like on it, subscribe, those notifications turned on, comment down below, and I'll see you guys back here again tomorrow with yet another brand new video. Just remember, Capital, be Randy, and I'm out. Peace.